So what is the Biden-induced bipolar syndrome? It is ultimately about a sense of losing personal control, losing your control over your country, losing your control over your lives, losing your control over your environments, losing control, or whatever measure of control that is in those different places for you. And as a consequence, and combined with it, I want to say that there is a perceptual error that those who are truly going free and who aren't just here treading water while they wait for some other white sympathetic idea to come forward and to be successful. There's this perceptual awareness error that we are on the verge of losing control of our countries. And as a consequence of feeling that we are on the verge of losing control of our countries and that we are losing control of our own lives, our own environments, where we can go and how we can stay safe. As a consequence of that, there is this general malaise that people are feeling, this to go with another M word, this miasma that's creeping across the landscape. When it became obvious that Biden was indeed the president of the United States, the uptick that we saw in November took an even bigger leap, and in the direction of these behaviors. So what I want to do is I want to quickly turn around and then talk about how this affects service to white well-being, how it affects our efforts and the efforts of white sympathetics out there, both explicit and implicit, and what they are doing and how they're behaving. And this is important for you because even going free, even if you do not have the perceptual awareness about to lose the country, about to lose control over the country, about to lose control over your lives, you have accepted that we weren't born into a country that served our interests. We weren't born into a country that Western kind controlled, that Western kind dominated the levers of influence. We simply weren't born into it. You are still going to be affected almost by osmosis of these other people around you who are sinking into this dolorousness, sinking into depression, or the contrary, revving up into some sort of radicalism in order to try to make up for that sense of lost control. And the radicalism is not the radicalism of going free. The radicalism here is the radicalism of playing some variety of villain in the anti-white narrative. This is unfortunately a great example of how most people are not fit for leadership. They simply cannot handle the stress. They simply cannot handle when the seas get really rough, and that's fine. And you can, if you are in a position where you don't have to be at the helm steering the ship, you can, or something else that's critical, you can take a break, and taking a break is important, especially if you're in a position and what you're doing is in a position that you can take a little bit of a break. And by break, I don't mean that you stop completely serving white well-being, but that you dial it back a little bit. You get away from these people. We'll talk about how to remedy it. This is over on Psychology Today, the fear of losing control. We're just going to take a quick look at the first paragraph. One of the most prevalent fears people have is that of losing control. This is the fear that if you don't manage, to control the outcome of future events, something terrible will happen. People who are chronic sufferers from such losing control anxiety keep themselves continuously in a heightened state of stress with only brief, unsatisfying intermissions between fears. Folks, I think that the majority of those of white sympathetics, which, generally speaking, includes those who are white positivists like us, that white sympathetic sphere explicit, implicit, is white positivists like us, practitioners of going free, serving white well-being. We're there as well. I think that the majority of them suffer from this chronic fear of losing control. And a big reason why they suffer from this fear is that even though they're going free, they have not yet fully accepted that Western civilization is only in one place. It's not in the landmass called the United States. It's not in the landmass called UK or Europe or Scandinavia. It's in here. It's in our biosphere. It's wherever we go. Everything that we have created can be recreated. Everything we have built can be rebuilt. Wherever we go is Western civilization. Wherever we go is our cradle. Wherever we go is our noontide. If you accept that, then you don't have to be so fearful about the loss of control. We have to get acclimated to this reality that the anti-whites have won a long time ago, and that we now are working on ourselves first and those around us, and thereby building community around a specific lexicon and dialectics and a specific narrative of who and what we are, that it is our story moving forward. We are authoring that. For many, it begins with Prometheus Rising, the novel, and then they are writing it just as all people's stories come from the fictions that originate in their biospirits, and then they build those fictions into realities because that projection is a projection of their biospirits. What you have here throughout the white sympathetic sphere, the superset sphere of all of the white sympathetic implicit and explicit ideas, what you have here are people who are chronically suffering. Many, perhaps most, are chronically suffering, or probably most, with the fear of loss of control, that they're about to lose control, when really you're just witnessing the dominoes that are already in motion falling. There's the loss of control has already happened, and over those things that you believed in the past that we had control over the things that you believed by way of the anti-white narrative that we controlled, that we dominate, that we orchestrate and organize to our own betterment. We don't, and have never had in the totality of your lives, control over any of that. As a consequence, acute scenarios like this, where you have this correction in the anomaly represented by President Biden, this acute onset on top of the chronic feeling of loss of control, which is one of the reasons why so many people want to show all of the news constantly, just the doom documenting, show all of the news. Look at more loss of control. Look at how unfair it is. That heightens this sense, and that's why we see so many people thrown into BBS, Biden-Induced Bipolar Syndrome. Use this phrase, talk about it with those you think are grievously suffering from it. These individuals end up, as a consequence, really going two directions. One is toward apathy, resignation, surrender, and we're seeing people drop out. The other is toward the radicalism of villainy in the anti-white narrative. And we are seeing that in abundance at a time when these people really should not be doing that. And why? Because they have this perceptual error that we're talking about, that we are about to lose. We are about to lose this. We are about to lose that. So what do they want? They want an immediate reversal of the societal context and an immediate reversal of government policy. Neither are possible. Not under any scenario whatsoever. Neither are possible, period. There is no possibility of immediate reversal. And by immediate, we're talking about the next year, the next 5 years. And if the context stays the same, who knows how long that could be. There's not going to be 10 years. There's not going to be an immediate reversal. Even if you take this into the laboratory of thought, you take it out of the real world, which I don't like to do. But even if you did, and you could suddenly have somebody in office who could have the power to say, well, we're going to shut off, say, immigration to the United States, that would not stop anything. There is too much momentum of anti-whiteism. There is too much momentum and too many adhering and living within the anti-white narrative for there to be an immediate reversal. So what I want to do now is I want to move over to, this is Healthline, and here it's talking about the stages of grief. Stage 1 is denial. How much denial, I guess I'll go ahead and make the joke, it's, not just a river, but how much denial did we see after Biden won the election? Grief is an overwhelming emotion. It is not unusual to respond to the intense and often sudden feelings by pretending the loss or change isn't happening. How many people said, and I'm not even going to say it because the ear is against the door, but how many people made statements about that election after Biden won, saying the opposite? And here I'm not talking about those who had a mature argument and case to make. Here I'm talking about people who had none of that, which were the majority of people who were saying the opposite of Biden having won, right? Denying it gives you time to more gradually absorb the news and begin to process it. This is a common defense mechanism and helps numb you to the intensity of the situation. As you move out of the denial stage, however, the emotions you've been hiding will begin to rise. You'll be confronted with a lot of sorrow you've denied. This is also part of the journey of grief, but it can be difficult. And we're going to get into now stage 2, which is anger. Where denial may be considered a coping mechanism, anger is a masking effect. Anger is hiding many of the emotions and pain that you carry. This anger may be redirected at other people, such as the person who died, your ex, or your old boss. You may even aim your anger at inanimate objects. While your rational brain knows the object of your anger isn't to blame, your feelings in that moment are too intense to feel that. Not fabulously written there, but I don't slight the author here for not quite understanding the subconscious mind, the influence of emotions, the conscious mind in the way and to the degree and depth that we understand it here in Going Free. And I invite this author, should they realize that I'm reading here, to come on over and go free with us. Anger may mask itself in feelings like bitterness or resentment. It may not be clear-cut fury or rage. Not everyone will experience this stage, and some may linger here. As the anger subsides, however, you may begin to think more rationally about what's happening and feel emotions you have been pushing aside. And this then leads into bargaining. We then have the stage, and we're going to wrap this up so I can speak to the next thing of depression. We've seen many already slip into that, into this dolorousness, into this saturnine surrender to the anti-white domination. They don't want to participate in the any of the white sympathetic spheres, explicit, implicit. I'm hearing from people who are in all of these spheres, not just the explicit, but people who openly, or who not openly, people who care about Western kind And the reason they're conservative is about Western kind, but they are implicit for their fear of what the anti-whites will do to them, to whatever degree they're cowards, to whatever degree they think that they can achieve something good for Western kind by still being implicit about it today. It's very silly, I know, but people are motivated by a lot of different things until they finally come to the truth of going free. So I have sympathy for them, but they're seeing the same. They're seeing the same thing. These people slipping quite quickly into this depression of saying, well, the anti-whites, that's it. It's just, I got to try to now perhaps even become anti-white themselves so that they can try to merge with and find some sort of happiness. This then is what we are referring to as the Biden-induced bipolar syndrome.